first experience. Yes, I did find myself wondering, what have I gotten myself into?
Richard, 1954, Hayesville Township, North Carolina. Let's go back to when you were just a little guy. Tell me about life growing up.
Well, life growing up was in rural North Carolina, Franklin County, North Carolina, which is the county north of the state capital, Raleigh, north of Wake County. And we were not very well off as far as worldly possessions, but we were extremely well off with family love and affection.
What did your folks do for a living?
Well, my father was a male nurse, and my mother also worked for a psychiatric state institution, which she retired from. So they were both employed and retired from the state of North Carolina.
Was your dad in the service?
No, my dad was not in the service. My mother either. My sisters and brothers were not in the service either.
So you were the only one?
I'm the only one in the immediate family. That's correct.
Okay. Do you remember your grandparents at all?
I do.
Tell me about your grandfolks on both sides.
My grandparents that lived in North Carolina, my grandparents lived in Henderson, which is a town in Vance County, North Carolina. My grandparents, they were very religious. We spent a lot of time with them, particularly on the weekends. And we would visit them. The largest town was in Henderson, close to us. So we would go to town and spend a little time with them in the big city of Henderson, North Carolina.
Yeah. No.
And my grandfather was very religious. He was a deacon in church. And of course, my grandmother was a deaconess. So we spent a lot of time with them and my parents in church.
What did your grandpa do for a living?
My grandfather worked with the city of Henderson. So he was employed with the city of Henderson. And then my grandfather on my mother's side, my grandfather and grandmother, they lived in New York. So a lot of summers we would go to New York when school was out. We would spend time in New York with my grandparents.
Were the buildings taller in New York than they were back home?
Extremely, much taller. So that was an opportunity for us to get to the city.
Right.
The big city. Of course, they lived in Mount Vernon, and then we had other relatives that lived in different parts of New York. But we spent a lot of summers in New York.
Yeah. And what did your grandfather do on that side of the family?
My grandfather, he did a lot of things. I tell you, he did so many things, and he had so many jobs. I know he worked with some of the different companies in New York as far as automotive companies. He worked with some restaurants. He just did a combination of things.
Yeah. Now, where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in Franklinton, North Carolina.
And what was high school life like? Were you involved in sports?
Well, high school was, for me, for the first 9 years of high school, 1 through 9, the schools in my county in the South were segregated. So I went to a segregated school for the first 9 years. I was active in sports and baseball, basketball, but primarily basketball. Extracurricular activities, marching band, glee club, those kinds of things. And so when I went to the 10th grade, that's when, for me, the schools were integrated. So my last 3 years in high school, went to an integrated high school, and I was enjoying life as best I could as a high school student going to an integrated school.
Now, Tell us about that. How was that transition? Were you happy about it? Were you a little bit nervous about it? What was it like?
Well, I think I was fortunate because the year before I transitioned to the integrated school, there was a group of black students that they allowed to transfer or to be moved into the school prior to full integration. So there was a sampling of black students that went to the white school at that time. And so we still had communication with those students, and they shared with us some stories on how things were, what the students were doing, how they were treating them, what the teachers were like, and what the composition of the school was. So that helped us and helped me the following year when I was then required to go to the school. I had some idea of what to expect.
So, as a kid, did you know that this really wasn't the right thing to be to be separate your whole life? Did you understand that? Did your folks talk to you about it? So when everybody was put together, was it made easier? Was it difficult for you?
We understood. We understood it wasn't right, um, and I can say my father was he was very vocal about things, and he
Good.
was very protective of us. And we knew it wasn't right. We knew that you things were separate.
Right,
Back
right,
in the 50s and 60s, when I grew up, things were separate. Separate lunch counters, separate water fountains, restroom. Those are the experiences that I grew up with. Movie theaters, blacks had to go upstairs to watch the movie. Um, and we knew that things weren't right. And there were a lot of encounters that uh, my father dealt with in protecting us.
right. Now, when the schools became integrated for you, was your transition okay? Did you feel that you were accepted? Did you become friends with some of the white kids? How was that?
With the white kids, they were receptive.
Good.
There really wasn't any issues with the students. The issues mainly were with the white teachers, basically.
Mm,
The students were fine, but what I did find, and what in talking with some of my other classmates, we found that education-wise, we were prepared to take on the academic rigors or demands of any school,
right.
and we did exceptionally well grade-wise, and of course, we did exceptionally well sports-wise as we integrated in the sports activities of the new school. So academically, we did fine,
Good.
and we got along fine with the students. It was just the administrators and the teachers were the ones who were the barriers for the most part.
Right, right. They had the harder time,
They did,
you know.
yes.
What were your hopes and dreams in high school for beyond high school?
Um, well, to I guess get out of high school and in one piece, uh, make my parents proud of myself, and to make some kind of difference in life, be it in the area where I came from or some difference in the world and in any organizations that I would be involved with.
Right, right. So when you left high school, was it on to college or right to the service?
When I left high school, it was on to college. I was the youngest of four, and my parents sent my siblings to college. That was a struggle, and I saw that. It was a financial burden. So I said, you know what? If I join the military, I believe I can pay for my own college. I said, I think that's what I'll do. And so I joined America's Navy on 14 September 1972.
Right. Now, when you joined, the Vietnam War was still going on. Was that factored in at all to your thinking? Were you okay with it? Were you a little concerned about it?
I was concerned about it, absolutely. I knew the war was going on, but I said that I think that if I were to join, I can do my part as a American citizen towards this war effort. And a friend of mine, matter of fact, not only a friend but a cousin of mine, and he and I went in on the buddy system. Said, "Yeah, let's go in and see what we can do to make a difference and support the nation in our war in the war efforts." So we
And
joined as a on a buddy plan.
and then after you joined, did you look at yourself one evening when you're going through training and whatnot and say, "What did I get myself into?"
We did, and here's a story that illustrates that somewhat. So we joined the Navy and we go to basic training in Orlando, Florida, Naval Air Station, Orlando, Florida. And so one of the things you have to do in the Navy, well, a couple of things. You have to swim and you have to float, and it's a time event.
Right.
Coming from the country where we didn't know anything about swimming and floating and water survival and all that. And so the first thing you do in basic training, you go to the pool. So you jump in the pool and you have to swim for 5 to 10 minutes. Then you have to float for 3 to 7 minutes, and then you have to swim some 50 yards. Well, not knowing anything about doing any of this, so I jump into the pool and I found the bottom real quick. And so the instruction was, so we're gonna, if you have difficulty coming to the surface, we're gonna extend the pole to you. You just grab the pole and we'll pull you up. Well, when he extended the pole to me, and he said, "Don't climb it now." So when he extended the pole to me, I was panicking, and so I said, "Let me get up out of here, out of this water." So then he just throws the pole back in the water, and of course I found the bottom again. And I said, "This is not working out too well." So nonetheless, he extends the pole again. I hold the pole, he pulls it out of the water. So that was an eye-opening experience. And says, "Wow, what have I gotten myself into?" That was the first experience. Yes, I did find myself wondering, what have I gotten myself into?
Now, where did they station you when they shipped you off to sea?
I was stationed on the West Coast, Naval Air Station in San Diego, and that's where I was stationed on the aircraft carrier USS Constellation, CVA 64, where we sailed out of San Diego to the coast of Vietnam on 2 separate Western Pacific cruises.
Now, when they sent you out to Vietnam, did they give you any idea of what you were going to see, encounter, what you were going to be doing? Or did they just tell you you're on your way?
They said, "We're going to sail this date, and you need to make sure you make ship muster because we're going on a Western Pacific cruise."
Right.
The only thing that I was pretty much familiar with is what my job was, and that the expectation was that I would be required to do my job no matter where we were.
Right.
And so we sailed several days until we finally arrived in Tonkin Gulf, the coast of Vietnam, where we sailed and conducted flight operations pretty much around the clock. We worked 12 hours on, 12 hours off. My job was, I was an aviation maintenance administration man, and that entailed maintaining aircraft logs and records so that as aircraft departed the ship, on flight operations. I was in a maintenance control center with monitors. I would record each time the aircraft left the plane and each time it landed, so that I would be able to schedule it for whatever maintenance it needed, whether it was hydraulics, electronics, avionics, airframes, engine, tires, whatever. The number of flight hours would determine the required maintenance that that aircraft needed to be scheduled for. And so that was my job, watching the aircraft, monitoring aircraft flights, leaving and coming on the ship.
You know, I'm sure that was very routine for you. But those of us who have seen, you know, video and film of those planes taking off from the aircraft or landing on the aircraft and being captured by the wire, you know, to help stop it, it had to be really a magnificent thing to be standing right there watching, because these planes are going down a runway that looks like 100 feet. What was it like watching these planes go? And each one of them, I'm sure you held your breath to make sure it went up.
Absolutely. One of the most dangerous jobs that they have classified, they being the authorities, is working on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wasn't necessarily positioned on the flight deck, but I did have the responsibility of monitoring aircraft movement, and to be a part of that, there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of service members, they don't necessarily stare at the barrel of a gun to be in danger.
Right.
You can face danger in all aspects of the armed services, and death can come about land, sea, or air.
Right.
And that is one of the things that, unfortunately, I was in a position to witness, but not everyone witnesses those kinds of events. But there's a lot of moving parts on an aircraft carrier. You have over 5,000 sailors and Marine, over 100 aircraft. It's a floating city, and the operations around the clock meant that anything is subject to go wrong when people fail to do what they're supposed to do.
Was there ever a time when one of the planes did not return?
Yep.
What was that like for you guys on the ship waiting?
Wow. You just it's just a surreal feeling. You know, that flight crew, you don't know, but you don't know the details, whether they were shot down, whether they crashed. You don't know, and that happened. That happened during flight operations.
Yeah. Was there ever a time when a plane took off and didn't make it on takeoff from your ship?
I didn't witness that during my tenure, and during my tenure on the two aircraft carriers that I was on.
Yeah.
I did not witness that.
Yeah. Was there a time when there was a rough landing for somebody, you know,
Yes.
on the ship?
Yes, there have been some rough landings, and a lot of times those landings, uh, they may miss their cable, and then
Right.
of course they're fortunate enough to still have the power and the thrust to pull up and go back around and try it again.
Right. Right.
And that happens as well. I've seen that also.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Um, was there ever a time during the Vietnam War where you ever had any kind of a scary moment with the enemy or anything?
Well, we were off the coast of Vietnam, and what I was able to see some moments as we sent aircraft off to do the various missions, cargo, escort, fighter, or bomber. we could see at the distance in the land as bombs would be exploding based on the aircraft dropping bombs inland. So those things like that we were able to witness. Didn't see any in particular action in the sky between aircraft because um, it wouldn't it wouldn't usually take place close to the ship anyway.
Right, right. Now, did it affect you guys knowing that back home there was protests against the war going on and everything? Did this bother you guys, or were you just doing your job and not worrying about it?
It did. It bothered us, but we were trained to ensure, and we had the wherewithal to make sure that we still did our job, but the concerns of what was going on back home um, bothered us. You know, we can tell in the correspondence that we received from our loved ones. They would tell us the personal stories of going on. We could see the news, the limited news that we were able to see as to what was going on.
Right.
So it was a concern. And a lot of times, of course, people have different opinions, and those opinions sometimes were stressed or expressed, and those opinions weren't always the same opinion.
Right.
But nonetheless, it didn't get to a point where the differences in opinions for us that I've experienced aboard ship, where it impacted the morale and it impacted our ability to carry out our mission.
Right. Now, did you make the military your career?
I did. I made the military my career, yes.
Okay, and you became a lieutenant colonel.
That's correct.
You know,
Yes. I stayed in the Navy, America's Navy, right at 3 years. And then I got out of the Navy. And then I joined, I went to college, and then I joined the North Carolina Army National Guard.
right.
And in the National Guard, you have individuals who report for duty once a month. And then you have individuals who are full-time, a full-time cadre. That's what they do day in and day out.
Right.
So my initial enlistment in the National Guard was a part-time soldier.
Right.
And so I did that for a few years until I became basically active duty with the National Guard. And that was my full-time job.
Right. Right.
And in uniform. And so I stayed in uniform in the National Guard a little over 28 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is a career. Now,
Career.
what was the college you attended?
The college that I attended was Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Go Broncos. And I graduated from Fayetteville State University in 3 years. I went to Fayetteville State in 1975, graduated in 1978. And then I went to the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, Go Heels. Received my master's degree in public administration from UNC. And all the while, I was serving in the North Carolina Army National Guard.
Wow. Wow. You were busy. When did you meet Gloria?
I met Gloria growing up in, I'd say we were maybe almost in high school.
Okay.
Just maybe 8th and 9th grade. We attended the same church. We lived in the same county, but we didn't go to the same school.
Right. Right.
So we attended church together, and that's where we had an opportunity to see each other on a regular basis, and our friendship and relationship just grew from there.
And it's you're going to be married 48 years this year.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's lasted. She's keeping you around.
She's keeping me around. I'm fortunate to have her to allow me to stick around. and it's we're making it work, and I think we have made it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously. Um, when was the happiest time in your life?
Let's see, the happiest time in my life, happiest times. I think the happiest times. I think it was happy when we got married. That was happy time number one. Happy time number two, when two, three, and four was when our children were born.
Right.
That completed our family.
Right.
A daughter, another daughter, and a son. And I have a beautiful family that not only allows me to love them, but they love me.
Right. Right.
Yep,
And now you're the national commander of the National Association for Black Veterans.
that's correct.
Tell me about that organization.
Well, that organization was founded in July of 1969, and it was founded by a Vietnam veteran. Joe Wynn, correction, Thomas Wynn. Thomas Wynn founded the organization in 1969. He was a Vietnam veteran. So Thomas came back from Vietnam. He was in Milwaukee, and he was outside of the VA, and he saw a lot of veterans that came out of the VA, and they were, particularly the Black veterans, were upset. And so Brother Thomas Wynn says, what's wrong? Why you brothers upset and distraught? Head down. And the veterans told Brother Wynn that we can't get any services. We can't get any benefits. The VA won't help us. And so Brother Thomas Wynn said, wait a minute, that's not right. And you served in Vietnam and you go to the VA, but the VA won't provide you any services or benefits. And so what he did, he founded the organization so that there was an unmet need of veterans being able to receive the benefits and services. So he founded the organization to focus on assisting Black veterans to represent them at the VA to get their rightful benefits that they've earned. And so for 50 years, the organization, we've been striving and working on the behalf of Black veterans to get them 100% of what they're entitled to.
Right, right.
And we've been doing this for the last 50 years, reaching out to Black veterans. But the organization, we provide service to all veterans.
Right.
But the purpose of the organization in its original founding was to meet the unmet need of Black veterans who were not getting benefits and services through the VA.
Right. And it's going well.
It's going well. It is. It's going well. We aren't the biggest. We are recognized by Congress as a veteran service organization that's authorized to represent veterans. We are the largest veteran service organization in the nation, but we are the one that has the primary focus to assist Black veterans who are getting their rightful benefits and their entitlements. And so we are striving towards that end, and we are striving to expand our reach to assist more veterans.
What is it in your career, your military career, that you're most proud of?
Wow. I think attaining the rank that I have attained, and in the process, how I was able to achieve that. There was a lot of firsts that I experienced while serving in the North Carolina Army National Guard. And it culminated in, I was the first African American in the North Carolina National Guard to serve as a professor of military science at a Division I college or university. That was my last military assignment. I was the professor of military science. I was in charge of the Army ROTC program at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. No other African American in the North Carolina National Guard had ever held such a position.
Wow.
And I was responsible for commissioning lieutenants into the United States Army as a part of that duty as a professor of military science. I taught military science during my tenure to the seniors at the university, and I commissioned second lieutenants. I met and or exceeded my mission each year that I was at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And so that's one of the things that I'm real proud of, that I was able to attain the rank in a position that no other Black in the North Carolina National Guard had ever held before.
In your lifetime, you've lived through so many momentous occasions on the national scale, some good, some not so good. President Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King assassination, something good, the moon landing for the first time in '69, of course, the tragedy of 9/11. Was there something that happened in your lifetime on the national scene that really sticks out in your mind and you go, man, to this day, I know exactly where I was the day it happened?
I think when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Was killed, I was in school, and when I got home, my mother was real upset, and then she began to tell us what happened based on the news and what was shared with her. And I saw how it was very upsetting to her because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a iconic figure, not only in the Black community, but I think in the world. And for something like that, as tragic as that was to have happened to him, it had a profound impact on me and also the Black community. That was a loss that it was hard to accept.
I want you to tell me about how your life is during this pandemic.
Well. My life is during this pandemic has been, my wife and I have had the opportunity to spend even more time together. And it's been good. Let me say it's been good for her as well as me. She now pins me down to the honeydew list a little bit more tighter now. Now that I'm not able to travel and attend some other events. So the honeydew list is, I don't know if it's getting shorter, but I know it's being worked on.
Right.
And so we're doing a lot of projects and activities together. And that's pleasing to her. And if it's pleasing to her, it's pleasing to me.
Right.
So we're being safe. We limit what we do, where we go. We do wear our masks and gloves oftentimes as well. And so we are very cautious of what we do, where we go, and who we spend any kind of time with. Basically, the only ones we spend time with is our family.
Right.
But outside of that, we're cautious.
I mean, it's crazy how we're living now.
It is.
But it's important, man, because boy, we don't want to get that virus.
No, we don't. And my mother's 88, and I haven't seen her. Well, when the virus or the pandemic started in March, so we went to see her in March, and I haven't seen her since then. But I talk to her on a regular basis. But she and I, we're in that vulnerable population that, if we get the virus, chances are it's not going to be well for us or turn out well because of our age and other medical conditions.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to stay safe.
Is there anything you want to say about the protests?
Well, let me just say that I understand the protests. We protested in the '60s, and I understand the protesting now. And protesting to me represents a segment of the population that has something to say because of what they have observed is going on and they don't agree with it. And movements make things happen. And I think that the protest is a democratic process that I don't see a problem with it. Now, the rioting and the looting and all that, I'm not in agreement with that. But you know, when you really look at things, we have to be honest with ourselves. You know, this country is based on violence. It was created out of violence, and so to get upset with people who practice what has been done in the past, it's kind of hypocritical. But nonetheless, I'm not supporting violence and rioting, but I think people need to understand that this is how this country was created. Violence, rioting, raping, looting is a tradition of this country, and it has manifested into where we are today. And so we have to be real and honest about it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying what it is. And we just need to face reality. Now that we know, and as some people say, now that we know better, we should do better.
Well, Richard, it's been an honor meeting you today, and we just really thank you for doing this. You did a great job.
Well, I thank you so much. It was my pleasure and my honor to meet you all as well. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do this.